What's up, y'all, and welcome back to Wavez Weekly, my series where I'll talk about video game news and what I think about events going down in the video game industry. Today we have a different episode because, as most of you have maybe been following along, gaming news has been quite stale lately. There hasn't been much to talk about except for a couple new indie games and maybe some monumental shifts that we'll get into later, but there hasn't been too much to talk about, hence why I've been making game review videos lately. But one thing that we especially need to talk about today is PlayStation's move with PC gaming. PlayStation will reportedly no longer be porting its major PS5 exclusive games such as Ghosts of Yotei and Saros to PC. PlayStation's early strategy revolved around purchasing the exclusive rights to release certain games on consoles, encouraging customers to buy Sony's gaming hardware over competitors. Eventually, PlayStation bought whole studios, ensuring series like God of War, Ratchet & Clank, and Horizon belonged to the company. PlayStation's management changed its console exclusive strategy around 2020 after one of the company's biggest exclusive games moved platforms. When Horizon Zero Dawn launched on PC, it was seen as a monumental shift in PlayStation strategy, with other big-name titles soon following suit. Helldivers 2, God of War, Marvel Spider-Man were reportedly hugely successful on PC, selling millions of copies each. The strategy of porting some of its biggest games to PC has reportedly netted the company over $1 billion in revenue. I've talked about this on former Wavez Weeklies because it was rumored that PlayStation was going to stop doing it. Now we've kind of gotten an official confirmation. But it's kind of mixed how I feel about it. If I were to buy a console again, I would buy a PS5. I'm just like that. I like PlayStation more than Xbox, and I prefer PlayStation's exclusive over Xbox. I wouldn't mind having an Xbox, and I like Xbox exclusives as well, but I prefer PlayStation's exclusive. And a lot of people buy a PlayStation to play the exclusives. I bought a Switch 2 to play the exclusives. Everyone knows Nintendo, though, is never going to port their games on PC, ever. So, buying a PlayStation for its exclusives isn't something most people will do nowadays because, a lot of the exclusives are on PC and people do expect them to come to PC in the coming years. What I'm thinking PlayStation thought is that they're losing more profit from people not buying these PlayStations. So, to maximize profits, they're locking these games to their consoles. Therefore, if you would want to play that game, you would have to go out there and buy a PlayStation. It's really a kind of messed up strategy, especially when gaming should be out there for all. Gaming should be accessible to everyone, and I think video games should be preserved in a kind of way where they stay on a console for a certain amount of time and then they release on PC. PlayStation's strategy of doing this was perfectly fine. The people with the exclusives got to play the game a year, maybe multiple years, months early than most people on PC would, and it would eventually come to PC where everyone could eventually enjoy the game, and even to Xbox where some developers like Death Stranding, which originally started as a PlayStation exclusive, came to Xbox eventually. I just think they should keep the strategy where they port the games eventually over to PC, where they could spend time working on the port, spend time doing whatever they need to do, but also holding back the game because, PlayStation players deserve that sort of fairness because they're the ones who bought the console for the exclusives and they deserve to get to play the game first. I think it should be that way. Even as a PC player, I'm saying that. But them just taking it away from everyone, it's just not right. And I'm sure a lot of PlayStation players are going to be happy about this because they want to have their games, they want to have their sense of identity. But I really think games should just be for everyone. Everyone should be able to enjoy the games because we have a lot of games coming in the future, like the new Naughty Dog title, and a lot of other games that PlayStation is going to release, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to play that on PC. And a while ago, I was kind of fine with it, because buying a PlayStation, when I made the video a couple months back about this, it wasn't as expensive as they recently raised the price. And while it was still expensive to where most people couldn't afford, the second-hand market was a lot cheaper, making it to where, okay, maybe buying a PlayStation is kind of worth it when you're getting these exclusives. But now they're raising the price of PS Plus. Now they already raised the price of the console. It's more than $600 now, which is insane. It's just not worth it. And a lot of people, they want to stay on their PC. They want to stay on their PC that they already have spent money on, and they want to play the single-player games that they maybe have played once before, or they want to play, and they're just locked. They can't play them. And it's kind of stupid how we've been like this for a really long time. I mean, Xbox has always had their exclusives. PlayStation always has. Nintendo always has, of course. And it's probably going to be like that for years. But I just feel like games should be universal and be given to everyone. As I said, all companies should adopt the strategy where a game stays on a console for a set amount of time and then it eventually comes to PC. Xbox is just straight up releasing all their games on PC, and I love that. Of course, Microsoft owns Windows, so it's a lot easier for them to do that, especially when they're building on the same framework practically, and they could just port it super easy. But they're not bringing it to PlayStation until a couple months or years after, as we saw with Forza Horizon 5. And that game sold incredibly well on PlayStation, and I think with the new Xbox CEO, I think she's actually making it to where the games are going to be on just PC and Xbox because of what PlayStation's doing and because she wants to return to the roots of Xbox, as a lot of people know she's been doing, which I like how she's been really saving the company recently. But going further on the PlayStation thing, according to a report from Bloomberg's Jason Schreier, CEO of Sony's Studio Business Group, Herman Hulst told staff that the company would no longer be porting the company's narrative single-player games to PC. Games focused on online multiplayer such as Marathon and Marvel Token will apparently still be released on multiple platforms, but single-player games like Ghost of Yotei and Saros will remain console exclusives. This change only applies to PlayStation Studio games or titles that the company that has purchased exclusively, to such as the PlayStation published Death Stranding 2 on the Beach, can still be ported on PC. This is technically because Kojima Productions is not owned by PlayStation, rather it was just published by PlayStation and Sony and is not fully owned by them, but was launched as a console exclusive under what I would probably assume was a contract. But it's now free to release on any console and any platform, which I would guess Xbox is going to come to soon, and maybe even Switch. That'd be pretty cool if Death Stranding 2 could get running on the Switch too. But apparently the reason a lot of this stuff is happening was because sales of PlayStation last few PC releases were reportedly lower than expected, which is likely one of the reasons that the company is backtracking on all its multi-platform strategy, as I said. And as we know, back in March, PlayStation increased the price of its consoles, which probably heightened fears of the company that customers will be put off by the console gaming's rising costs. By removing the option for people to play PlayStation's major exclusives on PC, fans of certain games will need to purchase a console if they want to get involved, which, as I was speaking about earlier, a lot of people can't afford that or don't want to buy a very expensive brand new console. And since they've risen retail price brand new, that caused them to rise in secondhand prices and pre-owned, refurbished prices. It's just very expensive to get into console gaming nowadays, and I mean, I understand why people don't want to buy a PS5. People want to play the exclusives, but they don't want to buy a PS5. And to think a long time ago, there was also talks of PlayStation making their own dedicated launcher for PC that would rival stuff like Steam and Epic Games, where people will just go purchase the games directly from PlayStation on a digital storefront, where Steam wouldn't take the percentage away from them, which I am guessing Sony doesn't like. I would much rather that, just instead of no PlayStation games being on PC, but I think PlayStation has kind of made their decision and they've kind of gone through with it. Hopefully maybe they turn around and maybe decide to make the launcher, because honestly that'd be a really good idea for them, and I'm sure there would be some problems with it, but it would be still really good because we'd still have the games on PC and we wouldn't have to worry about losing them or having to go out and buy a brand new console just to play a couple exclusives. Some PC gamers are just saying that, oh, they're shocked people don't want their exclusives because there was the big craze when they forced people to make PSN accounts, that it kind of turned gamers away from their exclusives, but I don't think that's the deal. If a studio releases a really good game with a really good writer, just a good game in general, people are going to want to play it, no matter the publisher. I don't care if it's some PSN stuff. I've already owned a PlayStation before. That stuff doesn't bother me. I could see how it bothers other people, but I just want to play the game. I want to be able to play the game on my PC where I could run it at higher frame rates. I could run it at better graphical fidelity. That's what PC gamers want, and it just doesn't make sense for PlayStation to miss out on an opportunity like this, but I guess I could kind of see where they're coming from. It's just typical corporate standard where they want to make more money by forcing people to buy their console for the exclusives like Nintendo is. And what I also think is that PlayStation has gotten to a point where they have such fanboys and people that love PlayStation so much that they will buy a PlayStation no matter what. And we might even see stuff happen with PlayStation in the future that's going to be looking similar to Nintendo, where they make financial decisions and certain decisions that people definitely do not like, but practically we will be forced to comply because we will have no other choice. For example, like when Nintendo made Mario Kart World cost $80, everybody was like, oh, I'm not buying that game, there's no way. But you can't buy a Switch without buying Mario Kart. At least that's sometimes what I think. You could obviously do whatever you want, but a ton of people still bought Mario Kart World despite its $80 price tag. It's because, despite the feedback, people are still going to buy it because they can't do anything about it because they're not going to change it. And that's quite ridiculous to me. It's just valuing yourself over the consumer, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But anyways, y'all, that's about it for today's Waves Weekly. I really just wanted to talk about this because this has been a pretty big thing happening in gaming recently with PlayStation. I hope y'all enjoyed this video because this is a big thing to talk about. It's definitely affects gaming as a whole, so I hope y'all really paid attention and consider what this meant. But anyways, thank y'all for watching, and I'll see y'all later.